Hey folks, this is Ben Gessel. How's it going? I definitely have a lot on my mind. I just don't know if, I just don't know if, I'm fairly certain that much of what I'll be saying, I haven't really worded the way I'll be wording it in this video. Um, and there's other things in my mind as well that I'll get to today, I think. We'll see. Um, so I sent an email to my one of my uncles, uh, getting into various thoughts on, well, um, ideal diets and stuff, especially keeping blood sugar down, that sort of thing. And some of what I wrote in that email, I'm going to be talking about here because I think I'm going to focus on the psychological element. I'm going to talk about my life a little bit, um, and I know you guys are going to see on some level a crossover with your own lives, especially if you're in the same generation I'm in, or a little younger, a little older, whatever. Generation X. You could definitely be millennial. It doesn't really matter really how old you are. It's just that you recognize the 80's and 90's and 2000's. As they talk about this stuff about the trends and stuff. But let's just go through this chronologically, and I'll be talking about what I thought a good diet was and what my parents thought a good diet was, and we're gonna just bit by bit we're gonna get there. We will get there. Okay. So when I was a boy, at least when I first started learning about what was healthy food and what was less healthy, that would have been, right around, um, I guess you could say the kindergarten, first grade arena. I had a very surface, very, very basic idea because my parents never let me, well, they were very strict about candy and very strict about sweets. And so that's, I just went off of basically that repeated um, thing that my parents would always say. I just was like, okay, so I guess these foods are not what I should be eating, right? They look so colorful and tasty and good. So by the time I was 6 or 7, I had a pretty basic understanding that um, certain foods, a lot of foods that we had at dinner, had my school lunch, they were healthy foods, and the stuff that I wanted at the grocery store that we didn't really get very much of, if at all, that was not as healthy. And that's maybe fast forward a little bit, a few years. By the time you guys approaching Boy Scout age, right? So tenderfoot, which is 12 years old. Maybe not quite even that old. Probably closer to 10 or 11 years old. I knew a bit more. I think I knew on some level. I knew a bit more about what was going on, other than okay, the foods my parents buy, foods we have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they're healthy, and all the extra foods I want that are like goody stuff isn't so healthy. I knew even before going over this in Boy Scouts or in a science class in school, nutrition. I knew the 4 food groups. They were kind of something I'm not sure if this is a YMCA or I went to the YMCA with my brother. We did swimming lessons and we did gymnastics lessons, and somewhere along the line I just kind of picked up. At first it was 4, and then it kind of shifted to 5, somewhere in the 90's, I think. But I remember the old 4. Just, fruits and vegetables were one food group. and grains were another one, or whatever, and then starches or whatever, and then protein basically. We call it meat, poultry, fish, eggs, beans, nuts. Essentially, it was protein. Was the third one, and then dairy was the fourth one. Yeah, so they separated meat, protein over dairy, grains, and produce, and beans and nuts and seeds. That was all part of the protein group, and that was the way it was. And recommendation was 2 servings of protein a day, something like that, 2 to 3, whatever. 2 to 3 servings of dairy a day, and for grains, it was like more. It was like 4 servings, at least 4 to 6. That's a lot, and it was the same amount for produce. Or fruits and vegetables. It was 4 to 6, something like that. Um, so yeah, what do you think people did? They saw that USDA food recommendation. Yeah, definitely. We were all thinking, like, on some level, I don't know, not all of us, but many of us are thinking, oh, time to get some more fruit and meat, right? All about that fruit and meat, and we'll cover the dairy with pizza, right? Yeah, yeah, and oh yeah, does fruit juice count as fruit? Yep, that's what many of us were thinking. No, people, you know, I'll get back to where I was at chronologically, but how do food addictions start? Food addictions start with you just love a certain kind of food at some point, you eat a lot of it, and if it turns out that the food is actually addictive, then you'll be addicted. If the food actually isn't addictive, scientifically, you just won't be addicted to it. It's like, who actually is addicted to vegetables? Really? That's impossible. You cannot be addicted to vegetables. You can be addicted to potatoes. Potatoes are starches, right? Those carbs, maybe, but no. Green vegetables, no. And some foods you just can't be addicted to. It's impossible to be addicted to nuts. Cashews, pistachios, hazelnuts, peanuts. I mean, someone can say, oh, yeah, peanuts. You could be addicted to peanuts. Really? No. You can just gorge yourself on peanuts one of these days. And that's actually not a bad food to gorge on. But no, you can't. There's no such thing as a nut or seed addiction, and so on and so forth. But so let's go with the. So as I was learning this stuff at Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, school, talking about the parents here and there, it's just in the back of my mind. See, what was going on also at this point was, there's also school lunches, and whenever we went to an amusement park, there was that. There was occasionally, very, very occasionally, I went shopping with my mom. I kind of didn't want to go shopping with my mom when I was younger, for sure. There's all this stuff that was going on, and I was just kind of, a casual observer, my boyhood, and you sure it was a bummer that I couldn't always get fruit roll-ups every single time my mom went to the grocery store. Couldn't always have, I don't know. I think High C was one of the big things to drink. I remember that we always had the less sugary stuff. Or we had Capri Sun, but my mom was a little bit unsure about Capri Sun. But we had Capri Sun. That was about as sugary of a drink as I ever had in any of my school lunches. And I had apples and oranges, Usually one or the other, sometimes banana, sure. Those are the big three, right? Yeah, very unusual to see a plum in my, school lunch. Or something different, We were very economical, like everybody else, Most everyone else, so. And, the sandwich and the chips and the whole shebang. American school lunch. So, by chips, we're talking like Fritos, right? We're not talking Doritos. Maybe very rarely, but my mom never put Doritos in her school lunches either. She didn't put Ho-Ho, she didn't put Twinkies, none of that stuff. Nah, she put homemade oatmeal cookies with raisins. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Sometimes chocolate chip. I love chocolate chip. I remember. I just remember when I was younger how everything kind of was run by my parents, and I never minded it. It was great. Occasionally, I would put up a little bit of a. No, no, I don't know. It's just I wanted to be known. You know that. You know, if I wanted something, I did let them know, but I didn't force it too much. I definitely was not that kind of kid. I was very much okay, okay. I'll just do I'll just do what guys makes you guys happy. So my parents knew a lot about nutrition, but they didn't know everything. I mean, who did in the 80's, the 90's? Who did? Um, Previous generations had been eating largely whole foods, but a lot of talking about European Americans or Europeans, especially talking about it doesn't really matter which country. If you're talking about European American background, or not even that, not even just that, it's really African or Afro American. I mean, you're talking about in the mid 1900s or earlier. You're talking about, and people probably ate a lot of eggs, probably drank a fair amount of milk, some, probably a lot of bread, probably a lot of it's homemade. Increasingly, not so much, maybe, but more store bought stuff. But no, imagine eggs and bread and milk factored in pretty heavily, and as well as all your vegetables in their place, and some meat, not too much, right? The butter was a big deal. Butter was a big deal, that between World War One and World War Two era, those early 1900s or early to mid 1900s. I'm talking more about the farmer thing, and when you get into the farmer element, especially the Midwest, big time cheese, big time butter, big time bacon, yeah, oh yeah, and starches and everything. Yep, I know. Similar deal in rural areas in the Mountain West, Yeah, I mean, so I knew I had some knowledge, and I never. There's so many things, especially increasingly in the 90's, right? Increasingly in the 90's, you started hearing about all these other kinds of foods that you hadn't had before. That were it was kind of like this, that if the 80's was the era of the colorful, the colorful sugary cereals, right? That's still the case, but it was a big time thing in the 80's. Because you had your action figures, right? You had to buy your action figures. I mean, I love that. I love He-Man and stuff. But you had your colorful action figures, all your other toys that you wanted that were really colorful. You had your colorful sugary cereals. You had your colorful, fruit things you could put in student, school lunches. You had your colorful yogurts, really fruity and sugary, and you had your colorful juices and sodas and candy, and everything was really colorful. And it was marketed for kids especially, and colorful video games, and increasingly, yeah, but that's different. The marketing of colorful video games became more of a big deal later on, but not really actually. That's a different thing, I think. But yeah, the 80's was kind of the era of the live and let live, kind of, or at least with regard to sugar, it was the sugar decade, kind of 70's, 80's. I don't know. It was like, oh man, you gotta cut back on that fatty stuff. You gotta have more, low fat sugar, margarine. If that was the case in the 80's, the 90's kind of started correcting a little bit of that, but a lot of people were. It's always with all these. A lot of things were considered very fattish in the 90's. The diet things and all the exotic foods that we hadn't heard of before. Fattish and hippie-ish and trendy. And like everyone else, it was like, I don't really care. Maybe some of this stuff might be kind of tasty. Maybe some of the stuff is like, oh, sure. Who had heard of quinoa in the 90's? I mean, really, who knew about it unless you're, in the Andes Mountains and goji berries. Yeah, I didn't hear about goji berries until I don't know, it's mid 2000s. Like this, you know. I mean, there's some of this stuff is acai berry and stuff, and that kind of whole trendy thing continued into the 2000s, of course. By the time I graduated from high school, I could tell you quite a bit about nutrition. It was basically the basics. I knew the basics about what was known scientifically at the time. And I was in great shape from doing cross country and I was very physically active and everything. So a lot of sitting around college, especially later on in college, and a lot of dorm food and a lot of cafeteria food, a lot of fried chicken. Uh, you know, I still thought I knew a lot, and I did. I knew more in college than I did in high school about nutrition, but I was doing my own cooking at some point, and I was using herbs, and I was trying to remember to eat my vegetables, and but bit by bit, I don't know. It's like the littlest chinks in your armor become bigger over time, and you gotta change certain habits as you discover them. Well, as you discover that you can do about something better. Well, you've had I don't know how many diets have been coming out in the 90's, or even in the 80's, but the 90's, 2000's, 2010's, we've had a lot of just across the board, like, this is, this is how you're healthy. It's easier now to know how to be healthy. It is. I mean, even though it seems like it's confusing and there's always still all these people that are yakking away about this, there really is. There has been no time in modern times where, I mean, aside from this is the time where we really do know what's going on there. I mean, really, we had Dr. Berg, who you have to pay a little money, but Dr. Berg, Eric Berg, over in Minnesota, man, you pay him a little money, he can give you the perfect diet that meets all the all the 100% criteria for all the minerals, vitamins, and all the macronutrients and everything. It'll keep you really healthy. Keep your blood sugar lower. You know, that's out there now. No, it's not completely free. You can, I mean, but basically, you don't even have to do that. You can just the information is out there. The the thing is, and I'm gonna backtrack a little bit here. The thing is that I've always been very color oriented, very sensitive to color, and when I was younger, I was very naive and susceptible to marketing. Oh yeah, oh yeah. I was never bothered by advertisements because, especially when I was younger, they're kind of new, and because I just tuned them out if I wasn't interested. But if I often was interested, I'm like, oh man, I gotta go buy that. That's how a lot of boys are. We forget as adults that there's a progression in our perception of the world, reality. When you're a boy or a girl, but when you're a boy, you see, you want. Mom, can I have this? Dad, can I have this? Nope. Or occasionally, sure. But just not too much of it, right? Or maybe we'll get that for Christmas. Something like that. And you get to teenage range, and you're like, yeah, you have a little more shrewdness, but you're still kind of like, So you're in that in-between stage, and then when you're an adult, you're starting to see things how they really are. How they really are. Bit by bit. It doesn't always happen immediately when you're 20. It doesn't always immediately happen when you're 30. By the time you're 40 or 50, man, I think you probably would be able to see life pretty clearly. You should. Now, it's just most people. It's okay. Everybody's different, right? It's okay. But it's not that life is less fun, by the way, when things are plainer and clearer, it means that you can conduct your life in a better way. In a way, you're more aware, right? And that's one of the purposes of this life. So, but sure, I mean, it's fun to not have to worry about what you're eating when you're younger. It's fun to just, oh yeah. Now I get my enjoyment out of other things now. I'm trying, I still love cooking and I still love food, but not quite the way I was even less. It'd be over a month ago. Right? It's a little different, right? Lowering my blood sugar is it's really been a good thing. It really has been. But you taste food differently, and you actually come to love certain foods even more. You just are not having it very much at all, if at all, for a while. So the thing I want to mention here, it has to do with not just amusement parks, but it has to do with the extent to which I was around unhealthy food. And, the American culture, and I realize in other countries things are a little different, but in the United States, in the 80's, I've already kind of explained, of course, what the 80's were like. The 90's was kind of, there's always a transition period. I mentioned the trendiness of the 90's and how I kind of, at least internally, I kind of mocked vegan, vegetarian, liberal, stuff. I was becoming more aware of that element in the 90's. I just thought it was some certain diets and certain things were like kooky, But it wasn't always bad. It was just I was like, oh, this is kind of weird, Time to get to 2000s, which by the time I was an adult, full grown adult, you I don't know. It's just I've come a long ways. That's the best way of putting it. I've come a long ways, and people talk about how the USDA has been corrupted by companies and different lobbyists are pushing for these things. And yeah, but was that ever explained to me as a boy? Probably would have gone over a lot of boys' heads. But if you explain to a boy, even an 8-year-old boy, so ranchers and dairy farmers and whoever, they want to be able to sell what they're producing. So it's important to them that the USDA is essentially marketing what they're selling. And if the USDA is saying, hey, a little less of this is probably a good idea, there's going to be this huge fit, right? But then if you say that to a boy, do boys or girls, do they ever get that in schools? No, they don't. So, it's going against the narrative, right? The narrative. There's so many great things you learn in school. But there's some stuff that's basically junk, right? Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff you guys could look up yourselves about conspiracies and things. But it is true. They exist, and it is true. They have a great deal of truth to them, I think. I mean, look, like farm subsidies for all this stuff that makes you chubby and fat. GMO stuff. The fact that you have grains being so important over produce. Especially, even fruits over vegetables. As it turns out, as we know now, truly the healthiest foods that you can eat for this is all of us, not just some of us, like all of us throughout the whole world. The healthiest foods that you can eat are vegetables, nuts and seeds, right? Fruits in moderation, right? And when I said by moderation, I mean truly. I truly do mean one or two. A few more if you're more physically active. Definitely don't base your diet around fruit. Not going to happen. But the fruit is the dessert. And if you are okay to have fruit, you're okay to have fruit. And we should all be eating fruit, but it's just that maybe we have to cut down our quantity for a bit. Quite a bit. And then we can have some more. But it's just monitoring that blood sugar for a lot of us. But fruit has its place in a healthy diet. Beans do as well, but fruit's kind of like beans, but not as big of a deal. But I've only mentioned, and then it has to be whole grains. We in the United States, we have Bob's Red Mill, but yeah, if you see anything grain related, it's probably not going to be 100% whole grains. That's the way things are in the United States. So you just get really used to. I mean, I'm very used to the thought process of, oh, grains. I'm just gonna skip them. What's the point, right? Unless it's I realize unless it's like a bulk food thing, unless it's quinoa or forbidden rice or amaranth or millet or something with no gluten and it's 100% whole grains. Some people still eat oatmeal. Yeah, we know so many things about gluten that's so bad. So there's just a lot of people. I don't know. Just leave them out. You leave out the grains. Cut down on your fruit. Still have some, like berries especially. If you just talk to people, told them straight nutrition. This is how to be healthiest. And then along with the plant foods I mentioned, yeah, you should probably have a little bit of fish, a little bit of egg. Both have to be really high quality. And then if you want to have a little bit of grass-fed dairy or a little bit of poultry meat, okay, just be careful with that stuff because, yeah. But, it's a question of how much. But you can still, all these things are fine to eat in water to drink, herbal tea, herbs and spices. But what's not fine to consume? Make it a big part of your diet. If we know it's processed food now, but we also know that you need to have a heck of a lot more going on with whole natural foods, as well as maybe cut down on the carbs if you're not so active, especially. Oh gosh, yes. Like less than 20 grams a day, 20 to 30. I don't know. A lot less, and then they got to be lower GI, man. And do we get this? Did they stress this when we were younger? If I heard about it, I was like, oh, okay. It's always a question of how seriously you take stuff. But there are things we know now that we had. I mean, it seemed kind of kooky in the 90's. Well, I don't know. It just, like the glycemic index was so new in the 90's. And I was like, oh man, I am not giving up my oranges or grapes. I'm not giving up my juice, right? And that was the 90's, and that was Dr. Weil, and oh man, there's just so many more things we know now. I have to ask, but we're all Americans, or many of us aren't from the United States, but many of us are still exposed to marketing. Where's the justice? Where's the fairness? Whatever we've been eating, it all has an effect on our health and our exercise and our sleeping patterns and things. It all affects it. So many other things as well affect it. And so, but where's the justice for so many people? If you get addicted to bread, if you're always at Subway because it's cheap, if you get addicted to meat or cheese, you get addicted to juice, soda. I mean, at first it's really enjoyable. Then it becomes your bread and butter, so to speak. It's like every single day, got to have that fix. Some people are addicted to coffee or chocolate, and it seems like it's your own fault, right? It's our own fault for no. If that's the only cheap available food that's you can get on the go, and your lifestyle it makes it really hard for you to always be eating salads, and nuts and seeds are so handy, but we even need to soak that stuff to get rid of the phytic acid. Oh, forget that. And we hear that phytic acid isn't such a big deal, so we're but yeah, it's just where's the justice? And I'm talking about all of us. I'm talking about especially Americans, but others as well. Where's the? We have been taken advantage of. If companies knew that something was wrong, but they still sold it, it's on their heads. It's not us. It's a buyer beware. Yeah, but I mean, it's also a question of what options we had. Literally, when I was in school, unless I brought a sack lunch, and then my mom had to rely on her knowledge of nutrition and what was best. So my mom believed that grains were healthy for you. And they are, but gluten isn't such a good thing for you. We didn't really understand that so well. You know, same thing with casein, dairy, but it's a different ball of wax somewhat. But we saw that how you had to have, and then the pyramid, man, 6 to 11 servings of grains. Come on, 6 to 11 servings of grains. That was the foundation. Bunch of crap. But we saw that and we're like, oh man, we gotta have our servings of grains. Gotta have the dairy. You know, hey, Mr. Rogers had dairy instead of meat. You can't knock dairy. It's just that, I don't know. It's like the most important thing, by the way, regarding animal foods is getting your complete proteins. That's really what it was. It's you can get into all that stuff, and we didn't even know about the corn-fed versus grass-fed stuff. We were just like, so many of these little details. I'm gonna make a part 2 here. Bear with me. I'll see you guys here in the next video. Take care. Bye.